There's only one car in all of Radiator Springs that everybody laughs at. A hippie van who brews his own weird fuel. Listens to Hendrix and says the same thing about everything. They're lying to us. Fillmore. A walking conspiracy theorist joke. And here's what I can't stop thinking about. At the end of Cars 2, when the biggest scam in the whole franchise finally gets exposed, this van calmly says he never trusted Miles Axelrod. And nobody even argues with him, because there's nothing to argue with. Let me set the limits right away so nobody complains later. Fillmore didn't expose the conspiracy. He's not a spy, a detective, or some secret genius who'd figured everything out ahead of time. A title like "The Only One Who Knew the Truth" is an exaggeration if you take it literally. Other characters handle the investigation in Cars 2, but the longer you sit with one idea, the stranger this whole franchise gets. The idea is this. Fillmore is almost the only character in this world who doesn't automatically believe a nice official story. Everyone else calmly accepts what they are told. He doesn't. And one time, at the most important moment in the whole franchise, that habit turns out to be not madness, but a lifesaver. And I mean a lifesaver in the most literal way, not as a figure of speech. Lightning McQueen makes it to the end of Cars 2 alive largely because one weird hippie van didn't believe the most charming supposed good guy in this universe. We'll get to that in a minute because it's even more interesting than it sounds. This is Mr. Blessed, and today we're figuring out who Fillmore really is. Just a hippie joke that Pixar carries from movie to movie, or a character whose paranoia happened to point in exactly the right direction. Let's start with how Pixar introduces this character in the first place. The first Cars movie, 2006. The very first clear line Fillmore gets in the whole franchise comes after Lightning McQueen messes up the race against Doc Hudson and goes flying into the cactuses. Fillmore watches it happen and says, "Bad trip, man. Bad trip, dude." That's it. With his first line, the movie puts a label on him. This is our local weirdo, and you don't have to listen to him. So the viewer obediently stops listening. And when you think about it, that's the smartest part of the whole setup. Now we get to the line that started bothering me. Lightning McQueen isn't unbearable anymore. The town is alive again, and at one point he tries Fillmore's organic fuel. Then Fillmore gives his trademark speech. Word for word, or as close as possible. "It's a conspiracy, man. The oil company's got a grip on the government. They're feeding us a bunch of lies, man." In 2006, this is just a joke. A funny hippie says funny hippie stuff. The viewer smiles and moves on. Nobody takes it seriously. And the movie clearly doesn't ask us to take it seriously. Now look at what Cars 2 is really about. The main villain is Miles Axelrod, a former oil tycoon. Not some random criminal, but a former big player in the oil business. In public, he acts like he's saving the planet, creates a miracle fuel called Alanol, attacks big oil on stage, and builds an entire World Grand Prix. Basically one huge ad for his product. Then come sabotage and exploding racers. And look at how Miles Axelrod handles it. When cars start bursting into flames right on the track, he doesn't stop the race. He comes out and shouts that Alanol is safe. Then he hides behind an independent panel of scientists. The race goes on, and the press calmly repeats his version. Classic PR machine work. There's a scandal, but no admission. And the movie states the motive behind the whole plan directly. Make alternative fuel look like a dangerous joke. So everyone goes back to oil. So the joke in the first movie and the plot of the second movie are built from the exact same material. Oil interests a pretty rapper and mass manipulation. It's important not to push this too far, and I won't. Fillmore's exact claim that oil companies control the government isn't confirmed word for word in Cars 2. There's one con man, not a global system. We have to be honest about that. But the basic kind of suspicion that oil and lies could be hiding behind a shiny energy campaign gets confirmed with almost insulting precision. The character the movie itself framed as the town nutcase turned out to be the only one looking in the right direction from the start. He didn't know. He was looking. And this is where we get to the part that made me sit down and record this in the first place. First, a small detail that is easy to miss. Fillmore doesn't go to the World Grand Prix as a tourist. He's part of Lightning McQueen's team, and his actual job is fuel. In the pits, he keeps an eye on it, and tells Lightning McQueen that everything is fine. But we shouldn't give him credit for things he didn't do. The long speech about big oil, pollution, and the future of alternative energy at the start of the movie isn't given by Fillmore. It's given by Miles Axelrod himself. Fillmore's distrust is shown in a different way. Only at the end does he openly say that he never trusted Miles Axelrod. Even during the family dinner in Italy, when Sarge is praising the food, Fillmore calmly adds, "It's organic, man. Funny? Yeah. But notice this, his beliefs don't shift an inch no matter where in the world he is." Now the ending of Cars 2. Holly Shiftwell announces the results of the investigation. Allanol was never an alternative fuel. It was regular gasoline, specially changed so it would explode when hit by an electromagnetic beam. Miles Axelrod's whole green revolution was a trap from the start. The racers using Allanol burst into flames one after another, and Lightning McQueen was racing too. In the same race, under the same beam, and he didn't explode. Why? Because there wasn't any Allanol left in his tank. It had Fillmore's organic biofuel in it. The same weird brew everyone had laughed at since the first movie. In this scene, Lightning McQueen remembers that Fillmore told him the fuel was safe. And Fillmore starts explaining, "If you're implying that I switched out that rot gut excuse for alternative fuel with my all-natural, sustainable, organic biofuel just because I never trusted Axelrod, you're dead wrong, man." And then we get the detail I think is the best part of this whole story. He says, "It was him," and he points at Sarge. Sarge, a military jeep, a patriot down to his last bolt. The car who spent years calling Fillmore a tree hugger and mocking his freak juice. Sarge was the one who physically put Fillmore's fuel into Lightning McQueen. The suspicion came from the hippie. The hands belonged to the soldier. Two neighbors who don't agree on almost anything except one thing. This smiling do-gooder and his miracle fuel can't be trusted. And that one point was enough to get the main character of the franchise to the finish in one piece. Then Pixar ends the scene in the most Pixar way possible. Sarge says to Fillmore, "Once big oil, always big oil, man." He uses Fillmore's own words and even his tone. And Fillmore answers, "Tree hugger." That's it. No victory lap, no "I told you so." The character whose paranoia just basically saved Lightning McQueen's life gets another joke instead of praise, and answers with a joke of his own. Honestly, I don't know if the writers meant it to go this deep, but this is what the movie shows. Even when the conspiracy guy turns out to be right, everyone still sees him as the funny conspiracy guy. By the way, people often read that final exchange the wrong way. I got it wrong at first too. It can sound like Sarge saying, "Once big oil, always big oil" somehow undercuts the whole story, or even hints that he'd rather use regular gasoline. No, it means the exact opposite. With that line, Sarge admits the suspicions about Miles Axelrod were right. The former oil man stayed an oil man, and the whole story was a lie. He just says it in the language of their endless trash talk, because these two don't know how to talk any other way. This isn't an argument. They're two neighbors who just saved their friend together and instantly went back to their favorite game of calling each other names. And honestly, that's exactly why the scene is so good. But these two get even more interesting when you look at what they're built from. Pixar officially describes Fillmore in very clear terms. A 1960 Volkswagen bus, the local Radiator Springs hippie, a believer in individuality and all things natural, and a car who brews his own organic fuel. Not one detail is random. The VW bus is basically an icon of American counterculture in the 60s. People drove them to concerts and anti-war protests, covered them in flowers, and some owners even replaced the front logo with a peace sign. Fillmore has that peace sign painted right on his nose. Then there's Hendrix. Remember the morning routine in the first Cars movie? Sarge raises the flag to a military wake-up call. Fillmore blasts the guitar and answers the angry complaint with, "Respect the classics, man, it's Hendrix." For one of them, a classic is a military bugle. For the other, it's counterculture rock. And in the courtroom scene, they even yell "fascist" and "commie" at each other. Put simply, Pixar didn't place two random funny neighbors next to each other. It placed two American personalities side by side: discipline, the military, the flag, and order, next to relaxed distrust of anything official, nature, and they are lying to us. That's my reading. The movie doesn't say it in those words, but the details fit together too neatly to feel like an accident. And that makes it both funnier and more fitting that these two sides work together at the biggest moment in the franchise. Not the hippie alone, not the soldier alone, both of them. Now let's talk about the fuel itself, because there is another easy to miss detail around it. Fillmore's fuel isn't just a joke prop in this world, it works. In the first Cars movie, Lightning McQueen turns his nose up at it, Sarge calls it freak juice, and then Lightning McQueen tries it and honestly says something like, "Wow, this organic fuel is actually great." Then he buys a whole case. So the Weird Town Hippies product passes the test of a professional racer. And in Cars 2, the same fuel survives the biggest crash test in the whole franchise, the beam that makes all the others explode. And here's something I never noticed before. It's very easy to misread Cars 2 as a movie saying that all this green energy stuff is a scam, but the movie says the exact opposite. The fake is a corporate product with a huge budget, a pretty name, and a worldwide ad campaign. The real thing is homemade biofuel from a tiny forgotten town, brewed by a car nobody takes seriously. A fake green display against one small, real product. I don't know if Pixar meant this as a direct shot at greenwashing, but that is the contrast the movie gives us, and it's not there by accident. There's also another angle that makes his distrust feel different. Remember what happened to Radiator Springs. The town didn't die because of a villain. Nobody set out to kill it. The interstate was simply built around it, traffic disappeared, and an entire town full of people. Full of cars, stories, and neon signs became useless to everyone in just a few years. The first Cars shows this without any conspiracy stuff. Not a plot, just the normal logic of big roads and big money, which doesn't care about small towns, and Fillmore lives inside those results every day. I'm not saying the movie directly connects these things. It doesn't. But it feels like a car whose home was once erased from the map by a decision made above him might find it a little easier than everyone else to distrust pretty official stories. That's not a fact, it's just a feeling the movie gives me. But it doesn't go away. Now I need to slow down my own theory because it'd be dishonest not to. What did Fillmore not know? Almost every specific detail. There isn't one scene in the movies where he knows about the beam, the camera that fires the beam, the network of lemons, Miles Axelrod's hidden engine, or the whole plan. Finn McMissile and Holly handle the investigation from start to finish. The first one to put together the idea of an oil motive is, wait for it, Mater. The same Mater everyone sees as the dumbest car on screen. And in the end, Miles Axelrod exposes himself when he panics and screams, "Deactivate," at the bomb, proving that he knows the code. Fillmore has no part in this spy story at all. He's not the one who exposes anyone. As we find out, he didn't even switch the fuel himself, so if you take the title of this video literally, no, he didn't know the truth. He didn't have the truth in any detective story sense. He had something else, and I think it matters more. He had a reflex not to believe. Everyone listens to the charming tycoon and nods. The press repeats his safety claims. The race continues, and one van on the edge of this story simply never bought the legend in the first place. There's a line in the fan community that I really love. Fillmore wasn't crazy. He was just early. And here are two more small details I found that I can't unsee now. The character was originally supposed to have a different name. According to the family of Bob Waldmeyer, an artist tied to Route 66, Pixar discussed a character for Cars with him in 2004. The character was first called Waldmeyer, then renamed Fillmore because the studio decided not to give the cars real people's names. Fans also often read Fillmore's license plate as George Carlin's birthday. Just to be clear, neither detail has official confirmation. They're both in the often interpreted as category. But the fact that this many layers have built up around a background comedy van still says something. There's only one frustrating part. After Cars 2, the franchise almost completely dropped this thread. In the third movie, Fillmore is back with Lightning McQueen's team, but he doesn't get a single scene that truly matters to the plot. In Cars on the Road, he appears briefly at the start of the first episode, when the Radiator Springs residents talk about Mater's trip, but then he stays home. The franchise never continued the Miles Axelrod story or his distrust of big corporations. Here's the bottom line: Fillmore isn't a prophet or some secret wise man of the Cars world. Pixar did something smarter. It drew a walking parody of a hippie conspiracy guy and let everyone laugh at him, then placed him inside a franchise where the biggest conspiracy really is built on oil, corporate lies, fake green marketing, and the manipulation of a global sporting event. And in that franchise, his distrust worked once in the exact place where everyone else's trust almost cost Lightning McQueen his life. He didn't know the truth. He just never believed its pretty official version. And it turns out, sometimes that is enough. So now the next time Fillmore starts going on about some conspiracy, it'll be a little harder to brush him off, which means Mr. Blessed will be back in Radiator Springs for the next strange thing we probably should never have noticed.